about connection is the curriculum. This is something that Stephen Kim, our founder and executive director, always tells us when we're just trying to keep it simple. There's a lot of information, but at the end of the day, if we stick to that connection, how am I being consistent? As we heard earlier this morning, the consistency, the authenticity of our care and our desire to take care of others comes through, then the rest falls into place, right? So we're going to start with that today. And as Ty already helped most of us check in already, we're going to do just a quick, now you did the highs and lows. Now we're just going to do just how you're feeling, okay? So we're just going to do your name and then how you're feeling. Did we do their feeling already?
No, but we also would like to stay away from comfort words like okay, good, because that's not really, those are easy. Like, you want to hear like, I always say I feel unbelievable.
Ooh, that's a good one.
So that's just an example, right?
So we're going to do a one-word check-in, and as I shared a little bit yesterday, we do this anytime we start a meeting, we're traveling somewhere together, we're doing a group, we're starting a staff meeting or a check, we always do the one-word check-in. And so as Ty was saying, it's a matter of being able to connect, but I'll give you a little bit more history to the one-word check-in, and that is we have our great friend, Reginald Washington. He's the executive director and founder of Project Aware over in San Diego. And he'll often share his story that when he was 16, he was a juvenile lifer. And at that time, he was in an adult facility with grown men and in his cell and saying, how did I get here? Obviously, there were the things that happened that led him there, but how did it culminate and cultivate to a moment where as a young teen, he was facing so much time and had done so much damage, and he realized that as he was sitting there, he still had all of that rage and pain that didn't stop despite the circumstances. And when he started reflecting and building in on himself, he realized that there was trauma, there was hurt, there was pain that started before the quote-unquote bad behaviors or the damage that he was doing. The violence was the expression of the feelings and was the only thing that he understood how to manage what was inside. And he realized that there was not one safe adult in his life that had ever stopped and said, how do you feel? What is happening? Help me understand. And so with that insight and light bulb, he started creating his own curriculum and looking into restorative practices and learning to, and really had the desire to teach young people, teach individuals on how to manage their emotions when angry and being able to do so in a way that was in a regulated and safe way. And so we honor Reggie when we do our one-word check-in. For those of you that follow child psychologists, the renowned Dr. Daniel Siegel often talks about you have to name it to tame it. He says you have to name your emotions in order to be able to tame them. So all of this messages kind of co-align with the reason why we absolutely want to model this practice, because as we model it and as we do it in our day-to-day as a practice, then the young people that are looking to us, that are seeing this, get the opportunity to practice with us and learn to cultivate this skill for themselves as well. So as Ty said, he's feeling, what did you say, marvelous, wonderful, fabulous? All of the above?
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. So we're going to go around just really quickly, just your name and how you're feeling. We want to try to avoid fine, good, all right, tired, sleepy, hungry, decaffeinated. I'm just kidding. All right, so he started off. We're going to go left, and we go left because we say left is closest to the heart. So I'm going to out here. So my name's Maddie, and I'm feeling incredible.
My name's Roberta, and I'm feeling content.
Excellent.
My name is Coco, and I'm feeling awake.
Excellent.
My name is Miriam. I'm feeling jumbled.
Okay.
My name is Lisa, and I am hungering for joy.
Oh, okay.
My name is Lauren, and I feel tranquil.
Excellent.
My name is Katie, and I feel thankful.
Excellent. Thank
My
you.
name is Zoe, I feel excited.
Excellent.
I'm Ruby. I feel interested.
Excellent.
My name is Vanessa, and I feel hopeful.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm Tyler, and I feel honored.
Wonderful.
My name is Edgar, and I'm feeling grateful.
Excellent, thank you.
My name's Jackie, I'm feeling curious.
Thank you.
My name's Amanda, and she stole my word.
Yeah, that's okay. Hey, we can have shared feelings. Who said you can't share feelings? You can share feelings.
It's great, I do feel curious, it's a great word.
Excellent.
My name is Michael, and I feel it's the only word I can think of too, actually.
That's okay. Shared feelings are okay. It's okay if you have the same feeling. Okay, thankful. Yeah.
Curious.
Curious.
I'm
Excellent.
thankful too, but more
Okay.
curious.
Okay. Excellent. I'll pass it back really quick. Your name and how you're feeling.
I'm Mark, and I'm feeling like I need to help with IT or something.
Oh, listen. Thank you. Thank you. We might just keep you in here with us to have fun. We were able to figure it out. Thank you so much. Yes, yes. But you're welcome to stay. I can make a tech support thing happen if you want to.
I'm feeling busy.
Okay. I love it. Thank you. Let's continue. Oh yes. Oh yeah. Let's pass it. Yeah, this way, and then we'll go back there. Yes. Yes.
Did she come?
Yes. She went already. Yeah.
All right. I'm Sonia, and I think I'm feeling relieved today.
Excellent.
Relieved.
Relieved. Thank you.
You can see that, and I feel joyful.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm Mindy and I feel encouraged.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm grateful.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm Grace and I feel rested.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm Susanna and I feel inspired.
Excellent. Thank you.
I'm Sonia and I feel hopeful.
Excellent. Thank you. And then Mr. Gill.
My name is Gil. I'm feeling joyful as well.
Excellent. Oh, go ahead, Joyful Gil. I love it. Well, thank you all for checking in. How did that feel, just being able to just say your name and state how you're feeling?
Great.
Great. Seen, heard, right? Yeah, thank goodness none of you said grouchy or angry. I'm like, oh, well, I didn't do it. So well, I'll make sure to do a check-in at the end, too. But, well, that we keep it alive and well. This is something we do when the guys, and we'll talk about this towards the latter part of our presentation today. We do this with all of our young people. Every time we go into juvenile hall or even the adult facilities, our teams start a circle. We practice the circle. The circle keeping is important because we say in circle, we're in unity. We're in community. There is no above, beneath. We're all in this together. And everybody is seen, heard, and valued. And so when they create the circle and they do their restorative circles, that's what we start with. Check in on how you're feeling. We want the youth to learn how to practice, and even the adults, how to say what they're doing. And it's interesting because even for our adults, they're like, I've never done this before. I'm not used to it. And then maybe some of us in the room is like, that's weird. And when people come to our workspace and everybody's checking in, they're like, you guys do this every day? We're like, yes. But it's so important to create an opportunity that even when things are not okay, to say, I'm feeling stressed today. I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling sad. It is an opportunity not just to pass and say, oh, like when we say fine, all right, it's just like, I don't want to hear about it. Like, just keep going. But the intentionality to stop and pause to say, I see you and I'm here with you. What would it be like if we did that for each other in community and cultivated more wellness and nurturing and caring for one another? And that is the practice and the essence of restorative practices, and we'll talk about it because it's about building relationships, building community, repairing harm, and empowering individuals to step in and to connect with one another. So, really quickly, I already mentioned this before, but the mission of Project Kinship, we are here to provide support and training to lives impacted by incarceration, gangs, violence, through hope, healing, and transformation. We truly envision a world where hope lives and that cycle of despair ends. We're empowering the ripple effects of these youngsters, these parents, generations of trauma, adversity, violence to heal and embrace community, kinship, right? Hope. These are things that we hope to continue to allow to perpetuate our services in our community. We have 3 main buckets of services. So we're in over 6 school districts, 38 school sites. Our staff are full-time. We started back in 2014 from 2 staff. Now we're all the way to 150 staff. Woo. So I ground myself and take a breath when I say that. And our schools team members are there doing restorative practices. So these one-word check-ins with the most at-risk identified youth on campuses. They are doing one-on-one check-ins, they're doing circle keeping and really helping those youth, again, repair harm that is happening when we have 2 fights or 2 opposing neighborhoods, 3 opposing neighborhoods on one campus. How do we get them to see the humanity in each other and realize that there's more they have in common than they do have different? Right, and so they're doing that, and so blessed. We say our schools team are absolutely the front line of our organization and what we started with in terms of services as well. Then we are blessed to have our juvenile reentry. We've been doing in-kind service for juvenile hall from the beginning of 2014, but in March of last year, 2024, we were fortunate to start a grant which allowed us for the Youth Transformation Program. These are 2 exemplary leaders within that program that allow us to do in-reach for every youth that's in juvenile hall. We're in every unit in juvenile hall doing restorative practices, credible messenger work, and reentry planning. So when those youth come out, that we're working with that youth as well as their families to provide full wraparound support and tailor services as needed. Some youth need the full basket of services. Some youth only need a little bit. So we're going to talk about that today as well when we talk about community healing and being ready to a la carte the service based on the need. I can have a whole spread for Thanksgiving. It doesn't mean that everyone's going to eat everything on the table. And we have to be prepared for that. And I want to make sure I have on the table what I know each community member might need that's coming here and coming over to eat with us. All right, so we'll talk about that. Then our adult reentry, we're 24/7 at the Theo Lacey and Intake Release Centers. As soon as individuals come out, regardless of the hour, they have a live person there to receive them, to say, hey, what do you need? Phone call, transport, do you need shelter? Do you need full wraparound services? And we have multidisciplinary teams within our adult team to cover those things as well. It's a mouthful of services, and there's a few other smaller in-betweens, employment, education, a lot of community collaboration and events that we do. But this is, again, it's a blessing to have this full spectrum specifically to help intervene with violence, gangs, youth that are at risk of incarceration, those coming back home from incarceration, to reduce that recidivism and empower individuals. And a lot of what we'll talk about as well is that these youth that we see, and when we talk about violence and even gangs in the community, that there are also risks of things being exploited as well. One of the workshops Raymond and I did, maybe like I want to say it was either 2 years ago, was specifically sharing exploitation within the community in gangs, and whether it's being specific on looking for specific youngsters that we know are going to do it because they're going to do less time, and or exploiting children or the young people and sexually as well. It happens, right? We have some of our individuals with lived experience that talk about their journeys getting involved in gangs and finding themselves in the streets and having to exploit themselves to gain money for themselves or for the good of the neighborhood. Right? So those things are all real. And I think but the common thread in what we're talking about throughout today and the message I heard yesterday and today is consistency, showing up, and again, back to that connections to curriculum. How do we build empathic and accurate connections with young people, even in the times where they're throwing that chair at you or giving you the middle finger. I said a curse word yesterday, I won't repeat it, but but when they're cursing at you, that's not easy, right? But how do we, again, be the regulated adult so we can regulate the child? Because as Bruce Duncan Perry and Dr. Daniel Siegel both say, a dysregulated adult can never regulate a dysregulated child. All right, so we're going to talk about that together. So, I love this. Dr. Bruce Duncan Perry, renowned psychologist, one of the founders for the neurosequential model of therapeutics that looks at complex trauma and what are the things that practitioners need to look at and understand from a neurological pathway perspective, what is literally happening in the brain science when there is trauma and complex trauma at hand. And he says the more healthy relationships a child has, the more likely he will be to recover from trauma and thrive. Relationships are the agents of change, and the most powerful therapy is human love. How I show up for you. I tell people I love them all the time. I love you in this room. I don't know you, and you'd be like, Maddie, you're crazy. Maybe. But I have been built to just love individuals. And I'll share with you a personal story of why that is. But it is so profound that how we show up for people can demonstrate love. It's not necessarily that we tell them. I mean, I try to, but there's also, we say, well, professional, sometimes boundaries, we can't tell people we love them directly. How do I show the essence of that love and care in a compassionate way where I'm building that connection? That person knows I genuinely care for them and they can feel it. Because as we heard from many of the young people speaking on the panels, they know when we're genuine and authentic and when we're faking it. Right? So that's so important. Another one here that I love. Fire can warm or consume. Water can quench or drown. Wind can caress or cut. And so it is with human relationships. We can both create and destroy, nurture and terrorize, traumatize, and heal each other. So which are we choosing to be? How are we instilling modeling and skills for our youth to help them direct what it is that they want for themselves? What is this on the screen? Developing human brain. Absolutely. I love this image because it's so profound to see what it literally looks like from the womb, from inception to the adulthood. What do we notice in comparison from the early stages to the late stages?
It gets bigger.
It gets bigger. Great. Yes. What else? What else do we notice?
There isn't any wrinkles until 9 months.
What was that?
It's not wrinkly until...
Ooh, it's not wrinkly. And we got some no wrinkles until where? Oh my goodness. Right there. We see some wrinkles. Yes. What else about, it looks like a little worm, right? Like they say, like 29?
Nervous system, and then it shrinks. Well, it concentrates.
Yes. So, have you ever heard of again, Dr. Daniel Siegel? I love him. The hand brain, he talks about the hand brain model, right? And so, if this is our brain, and this is right here, the adult brain, it's got the prefrontal cortex right here, the midbrain, right? And then this is the or the if you're a cat person. Birds, I don't know. I'm not going to do all the farm sounds. But this is the amygdala, okay? The amygdala is part of the central nervous system, all right, the brain stem, which, when we're infants, is the primary function of that child, of that baby. Is executive functioning there yet? No. Is that midbrain and connecting and being able to rationalize and formulate information there? Nope. It is all I cry when I'm hungry. I cry when I need a change. I need someone to soothe me. So a lot of the co-regulating and learning to be still happens from very early on. So when we talk about prenatal health and early development in utero, it is imperative because that little baby is already taking in all the information, the sounds, the feelings, sensations of the mother and the things around that mother environmentally. So how powerful when a mother's talking, you say talk to the baby, you see the pictures, people putting headphones on the belly and playing music, and you see even little pictures of babies like bouncing or putting their hands up in the womb. And on the contrary, when there's domestic violence, when there's a mother pushed down the stairs, when there's yelling and screaming, is that regulating and teaching an infant how to regulate stress or tension even in utero? No. So even as a practitioner, my clinical times, and what we have our clinicians do today is part of that biopsychosocial that we do in terms of taking the whole history includes prenatal health. What was happening when you were in utero? Do you know if there were things happening in the household before you were born? Because that's going to help identify, well, if that was all that chaos was happening and they were already having issues and challenges in kindergarten and preschool. Is it that it is true ADHD? Or is it an overlap because trauma symptoms and ADHD absolutely look very similar? So we want to rule that out. And what this tells us is how important it is for us to see the perspective that adolescents rely on us until what age? Does anyone know?
25.
25. So even at 18, I hope you good luck, get out the door and figure it out. Like, no! 25. This does not finish its formulation till 25. Young adults, young people need us to model, to help them. Ooh, breathe. Ooh, saw. Let's get that wise owl. This is the wise owl that lands on the branch. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Not the roo, 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 roo. Right? So we're going to talk about this in terms of how do we get to that regulation, but it's important to see from this perspective. And when we're teaching law enforcement, probation staff, and other individuals about humanizing the individuals that they're working with, we absolutely love going over this to put it in real life perspective, that this is not just, God, this kid, I can't stand him. No. What are we teaching? They require us to teach and soothe, because those pathways are forming. I don't have this on this one, but usually I show a picture of a grass and a pathway meadow. When you see a meadow, oh look, right outside, great, look at nature's helping me today. So right outside you see a meadow. What happens if I were to tell Ty and Gil and myself to run back and forth a couple of times in that grass? What would end up happening over time if we kept doing it together? It creates a path. The brain's the same way. The more I do with you, the more it's going to cement. What happens if I stop running in that grass over time? It grows back. The brain's the same way. So the beauty about what gets set in grooves in the meadows of our brain is that our brain is malleable and flexible throughout our lifespan. It gets a little more complicated when we're older because we got more grooves, right? But it's not impossible, and that's the hope. That's the hope in building protective factors, resilience. And one of my favorite things to tell people when they're like, my personality's set in stone, you can't change it. I say, well, actually, we can if we do the work. If we do the work. And so that's what we're invested in helping individuals do the work. So, back to the hand-brain model. If I'm here, my brain is, we call this flipping the lid. Is my executive functioning on? No. I am all fight, freeze, or flee when I'm here. When my brain is triggered because of my trauma, I don't lead with my executive functioning. My pyramid neurologically is flipped upside down. Individuals that have healthy, built, regulated systems, their cognitive executive functioning is primary on top. Big old space. Excellent. For those with trauma and untreated trauma, that leads me to all that physiology that's connected with my emotions and my thought processes, I get put primarily in survival mode. So I'm more quick to do than to say, let me take a breath. You know, Gail's looking at me funny and I'm feeling real frustrated. I'm about to pop off right now. Right? I'm more likely to be able to stay regulated and take a breath and say, hey, Gail, you know what? I'm feeling really frustrated because you're looking at me funny. I want to have a question on if I did something, and let's talk about it. To do that means I have to be able to regulate what is happening here, that emotional response. And when we teach that over time, then people have better ability to maintain that internal regulation versus someone that, easy, everything puts me into a fight, freeze, or flee mode. You barely looked at me, and I'm like, why should you look at me like that? Right? So when we notice that in children, youth, or adults, the first thing we need to do is the 3 R's. So we regulate. I got to bring that person back down. We're going to take a breath. We're going to take a walk. Let me see you, which is that midbrain functioning, that connection. And until we can make eye contact, we probably still need to do a few more laps around the corner or in the grass to get us calm and regulated. And then we get to reason. We cannot expect young people to be at reasoning when they're here. Right? And sometimes it's not on our time. So, great, I got that appointment at 1 o'clock and they're still popping up and oh gosh. It's not my time. That metal says I need a few more laps to really cement what's happening right now because I don't trust people. I don't feel safe. So what do we need to do to, not on our time, but and the hope is that over time in cultivating that relationship, those practices, that young person will, little by little, it's improvement, right? Oh, it's less time, it's less time, it's less time. All of a sudden they're doing it by themselves and they don't need us. And that's our hope, is that we get them to a place where they don't need to call us or they don't need us to be with them to model that because they're doing it by themselves. The capacity of self-soothing is born out of not just one or two, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of instances of being soothed by someone else. Looking at that, back to that brain image, we don't formulate. We need someone to help implement those grooves with us. We want to focus on building, strengthening, and restoring relationships through meaningful interactions, enhancing social emotional skills, and regulation of emotions. Hence, that one-word check-in practice. Let's teach that emotional vocabulary, emotional literacy to help our young people say what they're feeling and be able to let others know, this is what I need right now, this is what I'm going through. We want to, and I mentioned this yesterday, be the adults that are responding, not reacting. Reacting happens without conscious thought or consideration. It's the instincts that we have learned. And we have little control. This is what just me going right into action without thinking about it. Responding is when I'm aware of my reaction by stopping and observing first and identifying and becoming aware of the unpleasant or uncomfortable emotions that I'm having right now. And then mindfully selecting my response for that situation. And my internal reaction is the same, but how I am engaging is different. It is using my, what we call, wise mind. I can sit with the emotion, but I'm also using my reasoning to help me have a wise choice of action to move forward. I use this image when we're talking to administrators or individuals, and I say, okay, well, Dr. Bruce Duncan-Perry, bless him for his neurosequential model and literally spelling it out for us. But this is what it looks like if I am trying to de-escalate the behaviors, or if the science says this is going to happen, I'm going to escalate the behaviors if we do these things. If I want my class to stay calm, the group that I'm sitting with to stay calm, and, they're sitting, okay, well, I want to use calm sounds. I'm going to use and respect people's personal space, predictable touch, and there's a routine. I tell teachers all the time, what's the routine? You got to set a routine. Children love structure and routine. They know what to expect, because when I know what to expect, it makes me feel more safe and secure. Now, if I've got a calm classroom and all of a sudden, I start doing loud noises, and I tell everybody, get up, and how come your homework's not ready, and blah, 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 and I'm going to go in your space, you'll be like, woo, 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 real quick, right? It's not going to be effective. If I've got individuals who are yelling, screaming, they're up from their seat because they feel, that someone said something in class. Well, to help them come back down, I need to help give a calm affect. I want to give them support. I want to give them individual attention. And if I can't, hey, so-and-so, can you come real quick? Can you come help me with this one individual? Let's pull them aside. They need space. They need to go walk it out for a little bit. So we can literally see what things are going to help us effectively respond to any individual if they're in an escalated fight freeze, and then what to do if we're reacting, the potential risk factors we're doing, that it's again, a literal brain science, neuroscience. So let's set up for success. Let's look out for these flags when we're seeing them and support by responding effectively given how we are in that situation. So then we go into a quick overview on restorative practices. So restorative practices research does say that, with all this sociological research, that we know that humans are hardwired to connect. Again, I keep plugging Dr. Daniel Siegel, but he's kind of a big deal. He's great. He has this book called Intraconnected, and the science of me plus we equals muy. That's his coined term. And he says there's literally there's an intra-personal systems that are happening, how my brain, my emotions, my body, and physiology are happening. And then there's an interconnectedness between us. And literally, there are hormones, the dopamine and oxytocin that gets released when we are connected. How many hugs do you need a day?
At least 8.
Woohoo! Yes, excellent. How many for optimal?
10 to 12?
Go ahead. You get the gold star. That's it. Let's give her a round of applause. Woo-hoo. Yeah, love it. Yes, 12 actually is to have optimal wellness. What happens is literally if you place your hand over your vagus nerve right here, place the other one right over here, and I want you just to press and take a breath. Let it out. How does that feel? I see smiles. Yeah, it's soothing. It feels good. When you do this, when we're hugging and embracing with one another, it literally releases oxytocin. They say about a 15-20 second hug allows the natural release of oxytocin, which reduces cortisol. Cortisols are what? Stress hormone. There is a literal connection and positivity we get and benefit from being with one another and being close and caring for one another. So, we're hardwired to connect. Just as we need food, just as we need shelter and clothing, human beings also need strong, meaningful relationships. Restorative practices is this field within the social sciences that study how to strengthen those relationships with individuals as well as social connections within communities. And though newer to the social sciences, RP has deep roots within indigenous cultures. We always say before there was a written word, there was a spoken word. And communities used to gather around before they even had writing. They would speak to each other. It meant their literal survival to be one with each other. And we have lost that as a community, as a society. We're talking about all this social media impacts for our young people when they're tied in and the risk factors that we see when they get online and talking to strangers because they're hungry to connect. So how do we shift? How do we say, hey, for dinner time, we're going to put our cell phones away in the basket. Nobody touches phones. We're going to sit with one another. We had one family, one of our practitioners was telling me that the parents were flabbergasted at themselves because they said, oh my gosh, one of the consequences that we have with our children is to sit at the dinner table together. How did we get so far that as a family, the negative consequence is to be, it makes me emotional thinking about it, is to be at the dinner table eating with one another. Children need connection. We need to break bread with one another. We need to have time. So let's make that the positive. How about that be the incentive? How about that be our everyday routine? And yes, sometimes it's not possible, but it's so important. We talk about these rituals and routines. We need each other. So how do we help cultivate that as a community, as community providers, creating those spaces? And we'll talk about that together too. So talking about how we do this, they say that RP has this continuum of restorative practices. On the less, so when we're starting out, we make it a little more formal because we got to set it, we got to make sure that we're doing it. But the hope is that over time, as it is a practice, that even in saying good morning, how are you feeling today? Hey, good morning, we're driving out, that it becomes more and more informal. The goal is to be on that side of the continuum so that we're not having to force everybody all the time. Oh, once a week, we're going to start trying this thing. Or every 3 o'clock at this time, we're going to practice restorative practices. Versus it just be something that we're doing all the time, checking in with one another and engaging it as a practice with less planning because it's just part of our language. Why is this important and why does RP work and how do we instill it in our work? Well, the social discipline window, and this goes back into what is effective. When we're trying to teach, also maybe give some correction and guidance, what's the balance? Yes, we want to nurture and be compassionate, and at the same time, does that mean that I'm being permissive? Does it mean that I'm being, authoritarian or autonomous? The social discipline window says that the optimal place is to be where we are giving high support and high accountability. One of my favorite things to watch is when these young men go into a group and they have these young people set their own agreements. And if they breach those agreements, they know the consequences because they have set them for themselves. And you would be blown away that the things they come up with are be respectful when people are talking. Oh, that's a great one. Let's write that one down. Oh, no side talk. Oh, great. Let's write that one down. No glorifying or glamorizing the lifestyle. All right, let's put that one down. Oh, well, okay, what are the well, if someone speaks up, then they're going to have to, apologize or do whatever, or they're going to have, they can't get the snack for the group that day. They're coming up with their own consequences. I love doing this in family work. I ask families, what are your family agreements? I don't think we've ever talked about it. Well, guess what? We're going to learn today. And we get the whiteboard out, and we put every family member's name. What's your commitments? What are the agreements? What do you guys need from each other? What happens if you guys follow through as a family? Oh, we got to do this. We get to celebrate, go out to miniature golf. And what happens if you don't follow through? What's everyone's consequence? And everyone's coming up for things for themselves. Then the goal is just to stay consistent and to keep accountable. When individuals in authority partner with individuals to come up with these guidelines, and individuals are more likely to happily engage and do what's being asked because they feel involved in the process. And that's what RP and the social discipline window help us. Being restorative is saying, I'm going to give you high support. Let me walk and show you how to do this so that you're successful. And should you fall, the consequences, we're going to go back. We're going to start over again. I'm going to keep accountable because that's our agreement. But then we're going to do it again, and we're going to walk. And I can't tell you how amazed I am of again, I keep highlighting Gil and Tyrell and the entire team because they do this every day with our young people and the adults. Right? We have to set up for success, but holding the kids accountable and their families accountable while also still showing up with that smile, that care, that nurturing, and saying, we're here with you. We know this is difficult, but we're going to do it together. And that's the goal, because that's also teaching that regulation. We're sitting with those difficult emotions. We're sitting with those difficult situations. But I know I'm safe and I'm secure because I've got these two people here with me that are going to have my back, and I know they have my back. So, which box do you think, so we're looking at this box, we have it down. Which box do you think we're operating in if you said to a young person, sit down and shut up? Which window is that? Who said it? Punitive? Punitive. Excellent. You really only have to do it if you want to. Permissive. Excellent. Wow, you got a cheat sheet here or what? I'm just kidding. I don't care what you do. Sort it out yourself. Excellent. Give yourselves a round of applause. You guys are on the advanced class. Absolutely. And the last but not least, you are aware of the expectations in this class. How can I support you in reaching them? Which one's that one? Restorative. Absolutely. Which one sounds the best? Restorative. The restorative one. So we see how we can shift our language, right? Again, to being responsive, attentive, compassionate, while still holding that accountability. So, again, punitive practitioner style. The observed behavior is often used as a tone of voice that blames or accuses. It's got this friend out. Right? Lack of support and directions. I don't know if, you better get it done or else the consequence is coming, but you better figure it out. Notices inappropriate behavior more than appropriate. Frequently gets immediate compliance. Has high standards. The likely outcomes, even though it's still likely that if they're using a punitive style, they'll still have an ordered classroom. How are those students feeling though? Anxious, resentful students and young people. Well, fine, I'm going to listen, but catch me outside one of these days. I might key your car. Short-term compliance, but rarely lasting behavioral change. High teacher practitioner stress. That's burned out. You're always yelling at, that's exhausting over time. Negative classroom atmosphere. So those are things that we don't want to do. So how do we create that healing-centered care? So now that we've shared the restorative practices, some of that foundational knowledge that we utilize in the work that we do, how we connect, then we say, okay, well, how do we integrate that with a healing-centered focus? How do we say preparing the table. Like my grandmother used to always be like, come on, vámonos a la mesa, todos a la mesa. I'm gonna everyone at the table, right? So how do I prepare a table for my community where they can come and get what they need? And respecting that if they don't want to eat my fried green tomatoes, they don't need to. I can say, but they're really good for you, Ty. Please just have one. And Ty's like, I am not touching that, Auntie Maddie. And then I'm like, oh, okay. But he's like, but you know, I'm going to try a little bit of the mashed potato and a little bit of that tamale there. That looks good. Great. Because maybe Gil says, man, I'm going to try that fried green tomato. And then Ty looks at Gil like, is it good? And he's like, it's great. He's like, okay, I'm going to try one now. And that's what happens all the time. They start with little doses of what they feel comfortable with. And then when they see others participating or they realize, actually, I think I do need that, then they go, we want to have it ready. So that healing-centered approach or healing-centered care is an approach to health and well-being that goes beyond just the trauma-informed practices. We know trauma impacts. But how do we take it beyond? It emphasizes not only the individual's past experiences of trauma and adversities, but also their strengths, culture, and potential for growth. It focuses on that holistic healing. So not just the body, the emotion, the mental wellness, my interconnectedness and how interconnected I am between those pieces and the essence of being and addressing the broader social and systemic factors that influence a person's well-being. So I highlighted Bronfenbrenner's ecological framework yesterday and how all those different layers impact and ultimately interact with that one individual that we have to keep in mind. So the key aspects, and how am I doing on time? We're here till...
We're here until 12:15.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to wrap. So we're wrapping this up. A holistic approach. I like this. Phenomenology. Oh, I'm getting tongue-tied. I never get tongue-tied on this one. Phenomenologically. There we go. I gotta finish my cup of coffee. Phenomenologically, or the phenomenon, recognizes the potential impacts of trauma and addresses the spiritual essence and social aspects. So what I say is, you guys all just got blurry. Now I can barely see you. But it's taking my glasses off and saying, let me put yours on. Right? It's saying, I'm not seeing from my lens. I'm going to put my lens down. We're taking my expert hat off. I want to be able to take your glasses and put them on, and you tell me your life. You tell me what happened. You tell me how. I want to understand. So let me put myself in your shoes and your perspectives. I'm not going to make assumptions. I want you to tell me. I may have inferred information. I may have background information that helps guide my questions to clarify and understand, but you are the expert of your life. Let me learn from you. And how do I take what you're telling me and integrate it into the work that we're about to do together? It's strengths-based. We always want to highlight what the individual is. Did they show up? You showed up to a group today. I'm so proud of you. I'm grateful. Ty, Loki, I'm going to put him on the spot. He's one of the world's phenomenon of breakdancers. All right? Yes, he is. Okay? So he knows how to pop and lock real quick and has danced with the best. Okay? And how do I use that strength? If I know that about Ty, how do I give opportunities and lean into that as a means to elicit motivation, to engage and participate and highlight that? We've got to listen to our young people. We got to listen to the individuals we're working with. Margarita, she shares in one of our recap videos, and she shares openly all the time. She's a beautiful woman, and we're so proud of her and the work that she's doing today, but she was an individual who was trafficked in LA. And she shares that for years, people tried to provide her support. And it took Steve one video phone call to say, tell me about yourself. Not one adult, not one any other service provider had ever stopped to ask her that question. It was also, here's what we're going to do for you. Here's what we're going to do for you. This is what we have to offer you, and you're going to do this, and you're going to do that. So let's lean in with that curiosity. Tell me about you. And I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to remember that. Ooh, yeah, there's some fresh kicks right there, Gil. Nice some white Nikes you got on. Do you like Nikes? That's right, that's all I'm wearing. You got to tell me. I'll be like, you know what? I got some Nikes too. Maybe we can talk about Nikes. We got to lean into some of those conversations. So again, so strengths-based, encouraging to leverage the uniqueness of each of the individuals to help us with conversations. And then restoration and empowerment. Rather than just helping individuals cope, we also empower individuals to reclaim their sense of purpose. What is that dignity? The dignity and worth of an individual to feel like, I am somebody. Yes, you are. One of my favorite things to do is when the youngsters come home and they walk through our Monday morning huddles and we celebrate them. We're like, woo, so-and-so. They're like, he's got the last word because his word's the most important in the room today. And then they light up like, oh my goodness, I'm speaking to all these people. Like, that's right, because you are somebody. So let's lean into that and help give them that sense of purpose and create opportunities to help them create that meaning for their life. We want to focus on on identity and the person. Who am I? What is important to me? We support individuals finding these values so they can have a value-based living and really identify who they want to be. So that collective healing means us coming together and creating these spaces. We want to pay attention to language and we switch it up. When I'm in an education mode, I might use more of my psychobabble, but if I'm in the streets and I'm with the homies and I'm using different language, I want to connect with them. I might even dress a little. I might dress down, put my sweatshirt on, and put my Nikes on too, and say, let's go. What's going to help me feel more comfortable, and for those individuals I'm serving to feel more comfortable with me? Joining and cultivating. What are some of their rituals? What are some of their things? We talk about celebrating. We just had Lunar New Year, and a few of our staff and participants wanted to do that. We have Dia de los Muertos. Like, okay, like some people are like, I don't know what that is, but you know what? It's your culture. Like, let's lean into that. Okay, that's something of meaning to you. Help me understand that, and that's what we're going to celebrate with you. And then that empathic accuracy. Empathy is I can sit with the feeling, but accurately moving and shifting in that room and space with those emotions takes skill. It takes practice. What is being brought into the room? How does my tone, how does my language and my mirroring and saying, hey, breathe with me, I'm here with you. How do I do that in a way that really sits well with that person and individuals that I'm sitting with so that they feel like I am with them? Aligning with those emotions and being present fully and authentically. So now we're just going to talk about changing the narrative and instilling hope. I've done a lot of talking, and I got to give these guys their shine because they absolutely are doing this every single day with our young people, and they have their own stories, being young people who wish that individuals had maybe used this approach so that their lives weren't impacted in the way that they were. So without further ado, the great Gil and the great Ty. Give it up to them. So Gil, Ty, I've shared a lot. What comes off your heart to share for these individuals regarding what you see day to day? And I'm going to highlight Ty real quick because literally recently in our social media, we had a youngster reach out. He had just gotten out of juvenile hall. And he messaged on our social media and said, hey, can you please, someone tell Ty I'm out and I'm ready to meet with him. He told me to make sure to message, but I don't have a number. I'm at my grandma's house. I wanted to make sure to shine through because he changed my life while I was in there. A youngster went on social media to get a message across to this man right here. And that is that connection piece that imprinted with authenticity and realness that young person felt. So much so that he said, please, I don't want to lose that. Please. Without further ado, the great Ty. Go ahead, Ty.
Sorry. Really? So, when I worked with adults for a while, and when I worked with adults, it was one thing because they were set in stone in a certain behavior and mannerism. And I had an opportunity to work with the kids. When I had this opportunity, I was able to put myself in their shoes. I was once incarcerated as a youth. From a youth, I got promoted to go into county, from county to prison. And I just remember how it felt. I just remember I had great support. I had loved ones at home. It just wasn't the person I wanted to love me. So by me understanding this, I was able to go in with the children. I call them babies, to be honest with you. They just made very horrible choices. They just made very horrible decisions So when I go in and I talk to these kids, I'm like, I come at them at an angle and a point that usually their brain's like this, right? And they're usually like this high, right? So I meet them in the middle, about like a 5'4", and I talk really calmly to them. And I talk to them so they can actually understand, and they can go in their head, and I see their eyes, and I start, oh, what I'm saying to it's working, it's clicking. And so with that being said, I just show these kids love. You know, I'm a firm believer that love can conquer almost everything if you're willing to receive it. As Maddie was saying earlier about the connection is like just love. You know, when we walk into these groups, like before we get there, it's probably like, not probably, it's chaotic. Like these kids are gang members, they're like feuding with each other. And the first thing we do when we walk in there is, hey, how are you doing? And we embrace them. We give them a hug. You know, we ask them about their day. With that being said, it goes to another level of them being heard. When we do a check-in with the kids, and they're like, well, how are you doing today? Well, I'm tired. What? We ain't tired. Give me another word. Now they have to communicate. Now they have to use their words. Because that's just a comfort word, right? So when they're out like, well, tell me something else. Or they say, I'm feeling bombastic. What does that mean, dude? And then they explain that to us. So when they start communicating and talking, that means we're getting to another part of that connection, which is very important. Whenever they say something like they feel like sad or down, I'm like, that's valid. I'm validating their feelings. That's okay to feel like that. You know, you can't always be this tough guy. You know, it's okay to be who you are inside. You know, and so the kids, when me and Gil, so they call Gil Gilly, right? It's not Gilbert, it's Gilly. So some of these children are like, they're in trouble. Like they have, you know, if it wasn't for Gilly and myself to walk in there and be like, give them a little bit of hope, they would just be running amok. Because think about being a kid and you're looking at a very, very harsh ending. Like it's like very traumatic. You know, they forget who they are. They forget that they're kids. We call it imposter syndrome. They're being an imposter, and they're too busy focusing on being this other person than in being a person they're supposed to be. So once we see that, what we do is, or what I personally do is, I'll crack a joke. I'll say something to them, and I make them laugh. When I make them laugh, I know I got them in their center right here, and that's what we want. We want the CEOs to see that they're still kids. Treat them like what they are. They're just a child who made a horrible choice. It's just a child who was spontaneous. They were quick to think. They were quick to react. And they didn't process what they were doing. And before they know it, they're in jail and they're in trouble. So when we're able to get them to become a kid again and forget that the imposter syndrome that they were going through before, then we're winning. You know what I mean by winning? We're getting this child to think outside of the box. As a former gang member, I didn't think I was going to make it to 52. I thought I was either going to be dead or I was going to be in prison. And then what comes with that lifestyle? The fact that I get to work with kids, the fact that I get to go to where I was once locked up at and go in there and help these kids out, I hope I'm not offending anyone, that's a blessing. Yeah. That is truly a blessing. Because not only am I able to get them to relate and understand, I'm also able to get them we're able to get them to understand that they're still kids. There's hope. You don't have to go in there with the mentality of thinking, well, this is where I'm going to be for the rest of my life. This is where it's at. No, it's not. Go to school. Gilbert goes to school. You know, he's got his bachelor's. Gilbert is, I use Gilbert all the time. Even like so when we're together, we're bumping heads, right? Like brothers and sisters. But when he's not around me, I'm like, hey, listen, you know, Gil was just like you know, because they can identify with Gilly. And I'm like, Gil, you know that dude goes to school? And they're like, no. I go, yeah. I was in school with Gilbert for a while. And that dude goes to school. He's graduating. Now he goes to full-on university. And they're looking at Gil. And like, hey, this is what in our culture. Hey, the higher the socks, the downer the fool. Hey, Gil, let me see your socks. So he shows them the socks. So they're like, okay, this guy's cool. All right, Gil. So then, that going forward, they're like, okay, I can get it. I have a chance. I can do better for myself. So right, like, I just found out, like, as a couple of our kids are incarcerated, they're taking college courses. Mm-hmm. I just found out the other day, like, a couple of our kids, they had choices to make bad decisions and choices, and they chose not to. Mm-hmm. They chose to be an example to another kid. That's important. That's like very important. I found out, like, I'm sorry if I get emotional, but
Go ahead.
it's very hard. It warms up your heart. One of our kids has nowhere to go. You know, he's waiting for placement. I'm like, well, how's that make you feel, bro? And he's like, he felt disappointment. He felt discouraged, like he wasn't encouraged. And instead of him acting out in a bad way, he acted out in a good way. He was able to help someone. He was able to use the things that we are so passionate about instilling in these kids. He used those tools. That's why my eyes were watering, because he could have easily just like jumped into like a fight with somebody. He could have easily cussed out the staff. He could have easily done anything that is our comfort zone, where we're comfortable doing. He did something outside the box. He used the tools and applied them in a good way. That's a good thing. That's like a huge thing, especially if you've never been validated. Especially if you feel like you've always been looked through or not being seen or heard. And that's like a great thing. Now here's my time to be a nice person to Gilbert. Gilbert, would you please come over here and share?
Go ahead, Gil. Land the plane for us, Gil.
Yeah, that's right. You know, Ty pointed out, Maddie, I don't know where you've been hiding this slide. This was a good slide. I don't think I've ever seen it, you know. But Ty, you know, shared a lot of good points, you know, a lot of the, you know, why we do what we do, like every day. You know, a lot of us had to go through a lot of similar things that the youth that we work with for decades. For a long, long time, we were making these unhealthy choices. We were not aware of, you know, how we were being impacted by, you know, our communities to others. A lot of the rest going on, right? Like, you know, a lot of trauma by parents. Social media, right? You know, I want to touch back on the one-word check-in, right? Because I mean, we're talking about before these workshops about the, you know, being on the internet and the phone. You know, we hardly ever check on each other. You know, expressing that emotional wellness, right? Or I'm feeling bad or I'm feeling angry, right? But you know, we do work inside the juvenile halls with the boys and the girls, right? Teaching them that vocabulary on expressing how they're feeling, the good or the bad. Maddie touched on the points about creating those agreements with them, right? Not just like, okay, what are they? But just share with me what that means. We're changing that narrative so they can just not just see these short words on, okay, well, this, you know, I feel good, or we're not going to crosstalk. But give me an example, right? We show it to them. We do, right? But like, after paving that pathway through that grass, showing it enough times, they're able to create their own, you know, agreements in the way that they can understand culture. You know, we do use I lean on the culture a lot, right? But share what is the agreement, but what does it mean? What is it? Explain to me in a way that I can understand, right? Keeping that safe space. You know, you know, we make, you know, we joke around like, oh, if you can't. You gotta spell it, right? Confidentiality, spell it for me, my boy. Like, and so I like you spell it, Gil, CONFIDentiality. You know, like, I don't know how to spell it, but tell me like what that means, right? And they start, you know, through that path, through that grass, like, they start saying like it means that whatever I share here stays here. Mm-hmm. You know, and why is that important? Why is that important, guys? Because safety, right? But they start to share because maybe I've been holding on to something for a long time, and today I feel like I can share it amongst you guys. You know, here, knowing that nobody's gonna be gossiping, you know, bullying me about it. Sharing that narrative. You know, we try to empower the youth that we work with, whether it's through, you know, we advocate for them, or through their self-advocacy. Like, hey, these are the things that I've been working with. You know, and the restorative practices. Practicing with, not just in this group, we know where we are at in the facilities. We know they're at a high risk of doing unhealthy behavior, right? Unhealthy choices, putting themselves at risk of harm to themselves and others. But we can practice these restoration of self outside of this group while we're in here. It doesn't always have to be. And once we start getting used to behaving that way, in here, guess what? Once I talk to my moms, right? Because who's visiting the mom? My mom. Hey mom, how are you? Continue practicing these language. And we are changing the narrative. You know, we were never asked. We never had somebody that's been in their similar shoes tell me I can say, hey, you know what? I'm not okay, or I feel happy, or I feel joyful. You know, but we're changing that narrative with these young guys, and hopefully, you know, I like to again using that language. You know, putting them under the wing. You know, I'm still putting it under the wing, but guess what? I'm going to take you to this job fair, this school site, this other resource. And we keep recruiting to do these good, to practice this restoration of ourselves and you know, bringing it out to the community. You know, the choice making, you know, loving on each other. So,
Give Gil a round of applause. All right. So, connection is the curriculum. I'm hopeful that this was helpful, you know, informational, but also heartfelt for you all. Definitely is a heart work for us. We talk about the heartbeat of kinship, and that beat lives within all of us. And it's, you know, it's up to us to continue to take care of our heartbeats, the heartbeats of each other. Again, yesterday we heard, if this was my child, this was my family member. One of the, even, you know, Chief Hernandez, I have to give him kudos. He says it in front of his staff, like, if this was my kid, how would I want and how would I serve them in a different capacity? Right, so we're hopeful. We love you all. I know the In-N-Out trucks are waiting for you. We'll be here to answer questions if you'd like to, but thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us.
Yeah.